Hello. Right, tonight I'm going to talk about refuge. We're going to look at refuge on four levels, which confusingly relate to the three vehicles of Sutra, Tantra and Dzogchen. Because the Aro lineage is based in Dzogchen, we talk about these three vehicles, Sutra, Tantra and Dzogchen, whereas in other schools they will talk about a different number of vehicles. But in this tradition we talk about the three vehicles of Sutra, Tantra and Dzogchen, and so refuge is talked about in the same style as that. So the four levels of refuge are Sutra, Outer Tantra, Inner Tantra and Dzogchen. Because from the Dzogchen perspective, there are the three vehicles of Sutra, Tantra and Dzogchen, and just that Tantra is divided into inner and outer in terms of refuge. So I'll just quickly run through what the refuges are at these different levels, and then obviously I'll talk about those in a bit more detail as time goes on. So the refuge at the level of Sutra is in Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. Sometimes this is given as Lama, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, but that is still three refuges because Buddha and Lama and Buddha are inseparable. At Outer Refuge, so this is, Inner Refuge, this is Outer Tantra, it gets very confusing. Inner Refuge, which is Outer Tantra, so this is Lama, Yidam, Khandro and Parwo. Refuge at the level of the Secret Refuge, which is Inner Tantra, is in Tigle, Lung and Tsa, and refuge at the most secret or the ultimate level is in Nowo, Rangjing and Tulje. Refuge, this is the word that must have been translated for Kyab a long time ago. And it's a bit of a problematic word, really, refuge, because for a start, in the English language, refuge is a noun. You can't really say, I'm refuging. You can be a refugee and you can go to refuge, but you can't really use the word refuge as a noun, as a verb, whereas in actual fact, refuge is very much about engaging in a practice, engaging in a process. So I don't know who's responsible for the choice of this word refuge for Kyab, but I think it is problematic, and it's important that we understand that it was a choice of translation, and it isn't actually in any sense a perfect translation of the word Kyab. Some other translations could be protect or protection, especially spiritual protection, assistance, receiving assistance from the objects of refuge, that the objects of refuge are a source of enlightenment, so it's engaging in your own enlightenment through the objects of refuge. It's receiving a blessing or a favour through your relationship with the objects of refuge, or in the perhaps more normal sense of the word refuge, it's seeking help or relief. Now, interestingly, when I was checking out the actual meaning of this word Kyab in Tibetan, there's a word Kyab 10, which means bribe. I thought that was quite interesting to have those two put together, and it becomes bribe. So 10 means support or the basis of asking for Kyab, which is like a favour or a benefit of some sort. So Kyab 10 has this feeling of I'm giving you something, so that's the 10 part, in order that you give me something, which is the kyab sort. So it's like a bribe or an exchange that's happening there. So there's very much this feeling with this word kyab that it is a relationship. It is something more going on there than just, I'm here, I need you to give me something, or I need this place to provide something, and I can go there. It's much more an engaged, a fluid and interactive experience, kyab, than perhaps the word refuge suggests. The word refuge also suggests that you're going from somewhere, that you're somewhere that you need to find an escape from, be protected from, and that you're going to somewhere that is going to provide that safety or protection. And again, that is a little bit problematic in terms of looking at kyab, looking at this Buddhist concept of kyab, because the only thing that we're seeking refuge from actually is ourselves, our patterning, the way we create our own unhappiness, as we looked at in terms of the Four Noble Truths, that unhappiness is a process that we're creating all the time. So that is actually what we're seeking refuge from. It's not that, in actual fact, engagement with this protection from the objects of refuge is going to take us somewhere where we're suddenly safe. We're going to be in the same place. Our refuge is where we are now. But if we have refuge, we understand that those objects of refuge enable us to discover safety in the moment, or discover perhaps that there's no such thing as safety, that the objects of refuge will give us protection in the moment, and we discover that actually there's no such thing as being protected, or that the protection is the nature of the mind itself, the nature of the mind, and making sure that our mind is engaged in awakening is actually the only protection, is actually the only security. So I think that if I wanted you to take anything from this teaching tonight, I'm going to look at the levels of refuge now, but I think the one thing I'd want anyone to take from this teaching would be that you can't escape from something, because where you are has to be the basis of awakening. So if you are holding on to some sort of idea that refuge means I can escape from who I am and where I am, then you haven't got refuge. You can never have refuge, because only engaging with who you are, what your own neurotic, deluded pattern is, that is the only way that you can actually engage with the objects of refuge. And the other side of it is that wherever you go for refuge, wherever you find refuge in terms of your understanding of the objects of refuge, that is also still going to be where you are now. It's just going to change the view of where you are now. It isn't going to suddenly transport you to somewhere where you're safe. I'm afraid you still have to deal with that annoying neighbour, or that tricky problem at work, or whatever your situation is. It's not going to suddenly be all right because you hold refuge, because you take refuge in whatever level you're able to take refuge. So I think that's the most important thing to understand about refuge, really. Now, how you take refuge will depend on what level, what vehicle you're taking refuge in. So let's start with sutra. So the objects of refuge at the level of sutrayana or sutra are Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So the Buddha, or any Buddha, is an awakened being. They are a being that has gained full enlightenment, full realization, fully awakened. They are free of delusion. They're free of the patterns of karma. They are empty of any sense of clinging to an inherent identity. These refuges, this is rather nice matrix in terms of the teachings on refuge. So you've got the levels in terms of the yanas, and within those levels you've got another set of levels in terms of emptiness, energy and form, or mind, the visionary sphere and the physical sphere. So those run through this as well. So the Buddha is, to take refuge in Buddha, or to aspire to awakening in terms of Buddhahood, is beyond us at the moment. But it's an aspiration that can be a continuing source of inspiration. And it can be a continual reminder whenever we are tempted to stray from view, to do the spiteful thing, the selfish thing, the unkind thing. That sense of the Buddha is the view that brings us back. It's the view that brings us back to, this is unhelpful. This is not going to enable me to awaken. This is not going to enable me to become a realized being. And it's that remembering the awakened qualities of the Buddha, the emptiness of inherent identity, so that everything is experienced free of that relating it back to me and poor me and my needs. That quality is the holding of refuge at the level of the Buddha. So in terms of the energetic sphere, the object of refuge in Sutra is the Dharma, is the actual engagement in the practice of the path. So this is recognizing the causes of delusion, the causes of unhappiness, the cause of a lack of Buddhahood, a lack of being awakened, recognizing those and engaging in the practices that enable you to unwind that delusion, that enable you to move in the direction of awakening and let go of moving in the opposite direction, in the direction of compounding the patterns of karma, compounding the patterns of delusion. So that is what it means to take refuge in Dharma. The Tibetan for Dharma is Chö, which is translated as it is. So it's also taking refuge in reality in terms of this level, the second of the Sutrayana refuges. Now, Ngakpa Rinpoche, in the book Rays of the Sun, which we're kind of referencing in this first set of teachings, he called refuge establishing confidence in actuality, which is a bit of more of a mouthful than the word refuge, but is actually a far more accurate description of a translation of the word kyab. So kyab, here it's a verb. We're establishing something. We're not seeing it as something that can be acquired or can go to and stay there. We're continually establishing that basis of awakening like the Buddha and engaging in practice like the Buddha. So establishing confidence, the confidence to know what the path is, the confidence to really feel what view is and know what view is and recognize when we're straying from awakening view. And in actuality, well, that is Chö, the actuality of the real situation. So the real situation, which at the moment is there is delusion, there is unhappiness, there is confusion, there is the tendency to hurt oneself and hurt others. That is the reality. And the reality is that we engage in the path of recognizing that reality in order to change it, in order to transform it into the experience of awakening. So in terms of Sutrayana, we are renouncing our own view of reality, which is, I am the most important being in the world, everything relates to me, and that's it, from which all delusion and all pain arises, both for ourselves and for others. So we're renouncing that state, we're renouncing that stance, and we're engaging in a path that enables us to continually renounce that state so that we can awaken. Excuse me, I just have a drink. So that is the outer refuge at the level of sutra. I'm now going to look at the inner refuge, which is at the level of outer Tantra. This confused me for years, that it was an inner refuge, but it's outer Tantra. So you just have to remember that Tantra splits. The 6 Tantras of the Nyingma school get split into 3 of outer Tantra and 3 of inner Tantra. So the second level of refuge is the outer Tantra refuge. And here we have the 3 levels, the 3 objects of refuge that are known as the roots of Tantra. They're the roots of Tantra because they're the level of outer Tantra. And these are Lama, Yidam, and Khandro and Parwo. Now, once we enter the Tantric path, or I should say the Vajrayana path, because then that includes outer, inner Tantra and Dzogchen. As soon as one enters the path of Vajrayana, the relationship with refuge becomes much more personal. It's much more about what I'm doing, what I'm engaging with. In a sense, in terms of Sutrayana, one could have refuge without practicing. So you could believe in the reality of awakening, the reality of Buddha, the reality of the path of practice, and the reality of the community of people who are practicing. That was the third one. But it might be that you believe in it at the level, well, they're getting on with it and I'll support them. So at the level of Sutrayana, you could be said to hold refuge from the perspective of being no more of a practitioner than making offerings on appropriate days, attending puja with the practitioners, with the ordained practitioners. And for many people, this would be the level at which they hold refuge. They are Buddhists in that they believe that the Buddhist path is the path to awakening, but they're not necessarily practitioners. However, once we're talking about Vajrayana and engaging with refuge at the level of Vajrayana, then it becomes personal. Then you have to be a practitioner in order to engage in that path. It isn't possible to work with refuge in terms of Vajrayana unless you are engaged. So these 3 roots of Tantra, the level of outer Tantra, Lama, Yidam, Khandro and Parwo. The Lama is there because the Lama is basis of all Vajrayana practice. It isn't possible to practice Vajrayana without a relationship with a Lama. It is the Lama that gives you transmission. It is the Lama that gives you transmission of the practice. It is the Lama that gives you the methods that enable you to engage in the transformative practices of Vajrayana. And these practices are very personal, because these practices are working with your own individual personal situation in a very tangible, in a very vivid way. You're transforming how you find yourself to be as the path of practice. And in outer Tantra, it is the relationship with the yidam, with the awareness being, with the visionary being that one visualizes. It is engagement with that enables you to transform your experience of yourself. And it is the Lama that gives you this practice. Now, the third part of refuge at the level of outer Tantra, the Khandros and Pawos, this can be understood in two ways. The first way is that this is the circumstances that surround the yidam. So this is the mandala or gilkor of the yidam. It is the entering into viewing everything that surrounds you as the visionary experience of the yidam, because you are engaged in practicing that yidam. In outer Tantra, the yidam is still understood as an external form. You're still visualizing the yidam as an external awareness being. And you're receiving empowerment and transmission from the yidam in your daily practice to kind of continually renew the transmission you receive from your Lama at the times that you're in the presence of your Lama. So you engage in the transformative practice of engaging with the yidam, and you experience your environment in terms of the mandala, the surroundings of the yidam. But in terms of transformation, Vajrayana is the path of transformation. This is also an instruction to view everything that occurs in your life as the form that you engage with to transform. So everything that occurs in your life is the method. Everything that occurs in your life is the basis of the practice of transformation. Everything that occurs in your life is the fuel to keep you practicing, to keep you engaged in the practice of transformation. Now, as usual, I am reminded of a slogan here. I've forgotten to write down what number slogan it is, so I apologise for that. But this is a slogan that says, practice the 4 highest practices. And these 4 practices are avoid, is that the second? That might be the second one. The first one is engage in practices that move you in the direction of awakening. The second one is avoid practices that move you in the opposite direction to awakening. The third one is embrace, celebrate, be absolutely full-blooded about everything that you meet in your life, everything that happens to you in your life. Don't shun anything. Don't try and change anything. Don't try and push anything out of your life. Absolutely take hold of those naked electric wires of whatever's occurring in your life, because the fourth one is saying that is the practice, that is the path, that is what you are transforming in order to gain realization. And this is very much what this outer refuge is about, that you receive transmission of the path from the Lama. You receive permission, and it's more than the instruction. You receive the flavour of the yidam. You are given the taste of that yidam, in the same way that if somebody gives you a recipe and they, at the same time they give you the recipe, you taste their cooking of whatever that was. So say I've got a recipe that has been handed down from my mother, and it's something that my mother cooked regularly, so I know what this should taste like. When I cook that recipe myself and I taste it, I immediately know whether it's tasting as it should taste or not, or whether I've got something wrong in the baking. And that's very much what transmission is like. So the teacher gives you the transmission of the path of transformation, of the experience of the yidam that is going to enable you to engage in the path of transformation. And then you continually bake that cake of the yidam in your own practice, and you re-taste the yidam all the time. You re-savor what it was given you by the Lama, so that you completely engage with that every time you practice that yidam. And then you engage with everything arising within the kiel core of the yidam, within the mandala of the yidam, that everything is experienced as part of that whole experience of transformation. How am I doing for time? So the next level of refuge is called the Secret Refuge. And this is the refuge at the level of inner Tantra. Now here we're taking refuge in, or we're seeking protection, or we're seeking blessing, or we're seeking awakening through discovering our own subtle being. So we're discovering the subtle body in terms of Tigle, Lung and Sa. The Tigle are the essences of the elements. They're like the essences of awakening. The Lung is the energy that flows through the subtle body on which the mind rides. And the Sa are the subtle channels that are connected to the gross body, but are also they're not just the veins or the lymph system or anything like that. It is a subtle network of channels within the body that are not disconnected from the body, but are not the same as the gross body. Now, in terms of these three that we've looked at so far, it is always the second one that moves us between view and support. So the Buddha is the view and the Sangha is the support, but it is the path that we're actually riding, that we're engaging in order to be one of the Sangha and in order to hold the view of the Buddha and achieve the state of the Buddha. So it is the Lama that gives us the path of practice, and it's the Khandro powers, it's the environment of practice that enables us to remain with the yidam, remain with the yidam as the experience, as the path of transformation. And it's the same here, that it is discovering Lung and working with Lung, the middle of the three, that enables us to be more aware of the tsar, the subtle channels, and eventually realize the awakened quality of Tigre, to actually understand or know or have awareness of the enlightened quality of Tigre. So it is the lung that is engaged in terms of practice at the level of secret refuge. And so this will be practices like Kumye, for example. Kumye massages the subtle body in a particular way so that one becomes aware of movement of lung within the tsar, and thereby the experience of the effects it has on the Tigre. Now, it is only going to be possible to hold a sense of refuge at the level of secret refuge if you are engaged in these sort of practices that work with lung, that work at the level of discovering the subtle body and working with the subtle body. If you have no experience of the mind riding lung, of the mind settling and the elements settling, if you have no sense of the different qualities of lung, then it isn't really possible to have any sense of refuge at the level of secret refuge. And then the final level of refuge, which is called the most secret refuge, is at the Dzogchen level. And this very little, I'm going to say very little about this, because this is at the level of Nowo, Rangjin and Tugje. Now, I know that this particular audience that we have here tonight will all know this. At the level of Dzogchen, the objects of refuge are all going to be the same, because in the same way as the base, the path and the fruit of Dzogchen are all spontaneity, they're all non-duality. In the same way, Nowo, Rangjin and Tugje are all non-duality. They're three expressions of non-duality, and they relate to the three spheres of emptiness, energy and form, but they relate in terms of them being a non-duality, no longer being separate. So you can't tease them apart in the way that we tease the spheres apart when we're talking at other levels than Dzogchen. So all that can be said about Nowo, Rangjin and Tugje is that Nowo is the essence, and the essence is empty. Rangjin is the energy, and the energy is clear. And Tugje is, Rangjin is the nature, and the nature is clear. And Rangjin is the energy, and the energy is undivided. And these are all expressions of non-duality, and there isn't really anything more that can be said about them. If you have the possibility of, or feel that you have experienced direct introduction from your Lama of the non-dual state, then the sense of these three may be present for you, and the sense of these three being something that you can continually return to in your practice, then you can have this refuge at the level of non-duality. But to hold the most secret or ultimate refuge is to have realization. So in terms of Dzogchen, really this is a refuge that will flicker in the same way that an experience of non-duality might flicker into existence occasionally. It may be there and then it's gone. So holding refuge in that sense may flicker. So I think I'll just, what am I doing for time? I've got about 5 minutes. I think I'll just quickly run through those again. The matrix of them can be, a chart might have been a good idea. It's difficult to hold these things, I find, in an abstract form, so maybe I should have provided a chart. But every refuge has 3, and these 3 relate loosely, because you can't really say that they do relate to this in terms of Dzogchen, so it's a very loose relation to these 3 of emptiness, energy and form. How much these 3 relate to those becomes grosser and grosser as you move back towards Sutrayana. But at the level of Dzogchen, they are a non-duality. There are the 4 levels of refuge which relate to Sutrayana or Sutra, outer Tantra, inner Tantra and Dzogchen. And these 4 levels of refuge are called outer, inner, secret, and most secret or ultimate. This word secret in Vajrayana is quite interesting because it's not saying that it's secret in that, shh, I shouldn't really be telling you about this. It's not secret in that it is a secret. It's secret in that if you don't have the realization or the understanding to know what this means, then it is self-secret. So I'm looking at you through the technology of a Chromebook via Zoom, which is a thing that lives in America and somehow transmits to you. This is secret to me. I have no idea how any of this works, but it doesn't mean that I can't engage with it. I can use it, I can engage in the practice of it, but I would have to study it in some depth and train for it to go beyond being secret. But this is actually quite encouraging in terms of the Buddhist path, because it means that we can engage in the secret and most secret paths if we are in the position that we can receive transmission, because understanding the secret is always possible in the moment, and engaging in the practice that will reveal the secret is possible even before the secret is revealed. So I think this word secret in Buddhism is really a very interesting word. Yang is the word in Tibetan. So in terms of most of us and our level of practice, it is most useful to understand refuge at the level of Sutra and outer Tantra. So at the level of Sutra, the Buddha, who is also our Lama, these are the same being, is the aspiration, is the person that we look to see how we should be, to see what we could be. And they are our protection because they enable us to see who we could be, how we could be. They're our protection because they reveal to us our own patterns that create our own suffering. They create our own unhappiness. They create our own patterns that hurt ourselves and others. And so they protect us from ourselves. It isn't actually the job of the Lama to look after you. The Lama, it isn't the Lama's job to protect you. It is the Lama's job to be worthy of as an object that offers the potential of you protecting yourself. That is the job of the Lama, that they have to hold up to being worthy of being an object of awakening. And then at the level of outer Tantra, the relationship with the Lama there is intimate, it's personal, much more so than in Sutra. So it's not just that there is an image of an awakened being that you can aspire to, you've actually got one you can interact with, or one that is well on the path if they're not fully awakened. Most Lamas will claim to not be fully awakened. Even people like Ngakpa Rinpoche and Khandra Dechen will claim to be not fully awakened. But they nevertheless, whatever they say about themselves, they are that symbol for us as practitioners of an awakened being. And then the path, we can enter the path of practice, I think, at the 3 levels of refuge, at outer, inner and secret, because we can engage in these practices at the secret level where we can learn to experience lung. And then the supportive practices are the Sangha, the practitioners. The Sangha are, I think it was you who called them the irritating friend, because they're the friend that are supporting your awakening rather than the friend that is supporting your neurosis. So if you want to have a good old gossip about somebody and say nasty things about them and want them to support you in that, then they're the irritating friend who is going to say, oh really? I've not found them like that. I've actually found they're rather a kind person. And you go, yeah, but there's this. And you say, well, yeah, but, maybe, blah, 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 blah. And they will not support your neurosis. So the practitioners are the irritating friend who don't support your neurosis. They support your practice. They support your awakening. And those irritating life circumstances that make life less than happy, those are your supports for practice. Those are the nitty-gritty, raw material of life that give you something to engage with in terms of transformation. That is the stuff of practice. That is what you can engage with in terms of practice. So I hope that's been useful. I think that's the end of time.
Yes.
And that was Refuge.